Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw.
Basically, all these photographies, specifically the ones that talk about that shows pictures nature, it's like a reflection of my interest in life, basically how I see life. There's one with a scenery, and if you look closer, you would see that there is some form of chemical plant on the corner left, and that chemical plant make me a bit question, what is the relationship today between man and environment? So, what are some of the impact that human beings, have today to our environment, natural environment? So, we are a world that evolves over time, but then the biggest question always remains, so how can we evolve it at the same time as preserving our natural environment? And I also reflect on many other aspects like youth engagement, which is very much a concept that I'm interested in. I've been working for different development organizations, specifically in Africa, in Ghana. So, where we had to, bring pragmatic development to different communities, and communities living in rural areas are some of the most vulnerable today, and I think underestimated as well. Because we used to to believe that there is this big transition that is going on, and big cities have the most of opportunities, and that kind of focus actually makes us forget about what the rural environment can provide, and also what is the role of young people today. So, yes, this is part of development. This is an aspect of development. So, focusing on, engaging in young people by the leadership of young people, and for the future of young people as well.
Lionel Louis Gabriel Issombo. Is that like Lionel Louis Gabriel Issombo? Yes?
Yes, that's it.
Welcome to Shooting It Raw. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that, we've made the connection almost around the world. You're now in London, yeah?
Yes, currently I live in London. It's been actually 2 years now since I left Ghana to London.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. Great, great. So I'm super happy to have this conversation with you. I'll get to know you as we talk, and you'll get to know me a little bit.
Yeah.
And really looking forward to seeing what you sent over, because I think I was attracted to the connection I saw was foreign policy and sustainable development specialist
Yeah.
with Green Bee Insights.
Yeah, absolutely. So Green Bee Inside, basically, we had I had this great passion, of being that activist, not just for policy making sphere, but also in reality, looking more broadly at what aspects of foreign policy can be useful for development today. So working for Greenpeace basically was basically a chance, to connect with a lot of people with diverse culture and experience. And for me, it was a big step as well to understand a bit more,
Hmm.
what the world has to offer, and also how I can bring out some, innovative ideas when it comes to human welfare and environment.
Nice. Okay, so let's go into your first photo.
What actually inspires me in the first photo is the scenery with a, you see some form of natural environment there, and also if you look at the corner left of it, you'll see that chemical plant there. So I remember it was taken last year, January, at Lancaster Aqueduct. So it's a bit in the northwest of England, and I was so captivated about the that scenery, about the sunset, and also
Hmm.
the kind of relationship that human being has with environment in terms of activities. So I kind of had that moment of reflection.
Right.
Yeah.
So let me describe it for the listener. Basically, it's, you're shooting into, it's a low sun. And so it's a winter sun, and what you're looking at is kind of river roughly, and on the banks it's very, these trees kind of crawling in. The photo is quite high contrast. So because you're shooting into the sun,
Yeah.
the sky is very nice. There are few clouds. It looks like maybe you're shooting from a car or from a vehicle or from a train, like on a bridge or something,
Yeah.
because the bottom is, there's in the foreground, there's out of focus. I don't know if that's your hand or if that's the bottom of a windowsill. And yeah, as you say, on the left, a small little detail. On the one hand, there's this beautiful quiet scenery of a river with lots of woods, and it's very flat.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, yeah, you could just see this factory. So you could see the steam coming out of the chimneys and all this stuff, and you also see two and maybe more power lines going from left to right, just essentially cutting through the landscape.
Yeah. Yeah. Correct.
Yeah. So how in your mind does this frame how you want to talk about your work?
So, how does that relate? It's was actually the question that I had at that moment, the moment I took that photo on the bridge. Of course, as you said earlier, I had a moment of reflection, of how I can engage more and more people, and especially the people that I'm in touch with on a daily basis, my clients, into thinking, about the relationship between environment, social activities, and also how they govern their own activities. It was very much important, for me to think about that and to break it down for my clients in a way that they can understand through writings. Sometimes I write different pieces, article pieces that they can read and feed on and understand a little more what are some of the importance into considering how we live, how we connect to the environment.
So what brought you to the UK from, you said Uganda, right?
No, it's Ghana, actually.
Ghana, sorry,
Yeah.
Ghana. So what brought you to the UK from Ghana? Sorry, listen, my apologies. But so what was it, for school? Was it for work?
Well, first of all, it was cool because I had, to be honest with you, I had that opportunity from Ghana already. I was completing my bachelor's degree at a British university in Ghana, and it's called Lancaster University.
Hmm.
And then at some point, I was really very much interested into knowing more about what the world has to offer. Instead of just staying in my own bubble. Then I decided to travel to the UK because of scholarship opportunities, and then I've been to Lancaster University completing my master's,
Mm.
yeah, in foreign policy and diplomacy over there.
Oh wow, okay. So one of the things that, when I look at this photo, and I'm from Montreal, I grew up in Montreal, and so I'm used to being in the more northern part of the world where the sun in the winter
Mm,
is kind of low on the horizon.
mm.
And so now, so you've been a couple of years in the UK, and how is the environment? Because it's a pretty drastic change, right? So how, as an outsider, how does that shape your worldview and your understanding of, be it sustainability or foreign policy or how you help your clients? I mean, what is the uniqueness that has shaped your experience?
Well, I would say the word that I have to really utilize here is comparison, right? So I compare two environments.
Right.
You have the African this African environment, and also this Western environment. So with regard to my interest, I look at how basically people connect with their their environment, and in terms of healthcare, in terms of natural settings as well. So, how cities are built, and how
Mm-hmm.
nature's, how much nature is important, or to preserve for them. So when I look at that, I see as well more engagement into policy making for the environment by the people over here. But you see,
Okay.
again, this struggle when it comes to African nation. But of course, it's on the rise. You see, a lot more policymakers today, and also business persons who are trying to consider what the importance of environment is, in the African settings. But again, there is a
Mm.
huge gap in into knowledge, into literacy, when it comes to climate change, and all those kind of aspects. So when it
Sure.
comes to the West, and when it comes to Africa at the same time. So I think,
Okay.
yeah, we have to think a bit more about how we can engage people into that climate literacy, in order
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to advance and much more efficient policies in the future.
This photo is so simple, and it's I mean it's really okay. So it's basically a photograph of what looks like a lime tree.
Mhm.
It's photographed at high noon, and there is a lime or a very green orange sitting on. I'm assuming that's your hand, and I don't know if that's your hand. Maybe it's not. And the bush is very small. It's not a full blown tree. It's actually a very tiny, but there's this really nice fruit. And yeah, so what is this, and what's the significance?
Well, I took that picture in 2019, and that was back in my country of origin, which is Cameroon.
Okay.
And that was my father's hand. Basically, he was holding a,
Ah.
a citrus fruit. I think it was orange or something like that. And we traveled from town to a rural area, because one detail I have to mention is that in most African countries, mostly sub-Saharan African countries, a lot more people come from rural areas. So they
Mm-hmm.
leave rural
Mm-hmm.
areas to town. So we went there, and we went to our agrarian plantation field. We went there, and he was just showing me various products that he's been,
Okay.
working on in to grow in our plantation field for quite some years now that I have been, outside Cameroon. I've been in Ghana. But he said at that time
Okay.
that this is where wealth comes from, the wealth of our family.
Okay.
So this photo mostly relates to my own story, my DNA, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So, in a sense, that it talks about what is wealth, what does a generation can leave to another, in mostly in the
Mm.
African context here. So, yes, he talked to me about how much nature is important, not only to preserve, but also to exploit responsibly, in order to bring the best out of humanity. So that was always,
Okay.
some kind of catchy sentence for him.
Mm-hmm. So here's the thing about the photo. Your father looks like he must be really big, because the sapling, or the tree, or the bush, it looks very young. It doesn't look very tall at
Yeah.
all. And his hand looks very sizable. So how tall is he?
Well, it was. I think it was 6'5". It was around 6'5".
You're saying he was.
Yeah, he was.
Okay. Well, oh,
He's no more, but he was. But
I am very sorry.
thank you very much. But he left us
My
with.
sincere apologies.
Thank you. He left us with very good memories of, of his past. So here, yes, you talk about this
Yeah,
young
yeah.
tree, and usually orange trees don't grow very, very fast in my rural area, rural region. So we have, sometimes to find some fertilizer, but here you can see that it's still young. It's still a young
Yeah.
quality tree that you see, but then still it shows, a sign of productivity, if that makes sense. So
For sure.
um
For sure.
yeah.
Wow. So you grew up in Cameroon, and you refer to a plantation.
Yeah.
And so I'm assuming that these are orchards, or these are like, so a huge, like, how large of a space, or how much land was your family relying on?
Well, I would say pretty big. Honestly, I'm not an expert in measurement of lands, but
Yeah, okay.
yeah, I do believe that we had the very large portion of lands, and I think we would be able to build normal size houses, about let's say 20 of them, to fit them in that same
Mm-hmm.
that same
Oh, wow.
agrarian
Okay.
field. Yes.
Okay. So you're like, exact. Well, this whole idea of you're shaped by your environment,
Yeah.
and then your professional life leads you to the United Kingdom, like to England,
Yeah.
which is heavily shaped,
Mhm.
is heavily kind of like the footprint of humanity is rather extensive, right?
Yeah.
So would you say that where you grew up was there are a lot of wild spaces, or would you say that it was, how much has your perception or appreciation of human impact on the environment changed?
Well, I think what struck me honestly, when I arrived in the UK, and I very much appreciated the fact that communities were really, really considered the environment, as sacred to preserve. You would see the difference into, I would say, one aspect of it, and when I talk about one aspect of it, let's say waste management, you will barely see it at different corners of streets. Trash is disposed anywhere and anyhow, in
Mm-hmm.
comparison to, most spaces, in Africa. And also the techniques to dispose of waste are kind of almost different. So what is more
Yeah,
common here is to manage waste. You have waste management services that come, and then they put trash in the trucks, and then they bring it to the factory and take care of the disposal. But then in Africa, most of the time you would see people who can't afford to have a trash can home, and sometimes where the management, the waste management service cannot reach. So what do they do at that time? So they take their waste and then they burn it. They burn it
yeah,
somewhere behind at the backyard.
sure.
So that's what they do. And I think the fact that I saw how much service can be provided here, when it comes to waste management and well-being of the environment. I think it's not a matter of means, necessarily financial means, but I think it's a matter of common sense and also good governance and education. So that is still some form of a gap, in our history.
Right. But to be fair, I think the more you travel around, the idea of burning waste, I've seen it in the Middle East, I've seen
Mhm.
it across Asia, I've seen it. I mean, it's a bit of a luxury. Is it a luxury? I don't know. But it seems to be like, you think you have to be very mature kind of economy, maybe, to be able to think also about waste processing. So
Yeah.
let's tie it back to the photograph, though. On some level, how does the this image capture either your motivation, or capture your the fuel that you use to do the work that you're doing?
Well, it actually fuels me a lot, and not only from my core, as I said earlier, like from a father to a son perspective, about the environment. So what does a father know about an environment that he can, teach his son.
I don't know if the microphone, the socket or the jack isn't properly in or something, but when you're talking, there's a lot of static. Can you make sure the microphone is plugged in properly? And
Okay, is it better now?
yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah,
All right, I just removed my headset.
we are. speaking across a vast territory. So
Yeah,
sometimes it works, sometimes it
it
doesn't.
doesn't. So right.
Okay, so back to the photograph.
Yes, back to the photograph. I think it's more of a father-son relationship. So what does a father transmit to his son? Basically, as a knowledge. So what in his generation? Because we talked a lot about what he, how environment was managed in the past. It was a real long story, but also how technology today has given us the means to not just exploit the environment, but kind of preserve it better. But the problem is actually mostly the mindset. So basically, the willingness, to understand the importance of preserving our nature and also while of course exploiting it, but also the importance of considering an expansion of ideas, innovative ideas that can be useful for future generations who are going to exploit the environment. So that kind of relationship I had with my father when we were, especially when we discussed about that on that field, he definitely clicked into my DNA, and I said to myself, okay, I have to find a way to link that to my policy decision or whatever research that I conduct and advice that I provide to different clients who are going to interact with that same environment, and how it is going to be a more sustainable approach for them. So this is how it kind of relates to my work.
Got it. Makes perfect sense. Fascinating. Lionel, great. Do you want to move to the next photo?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, nice. Okay. Okay. Sweet. So it's a photo of three people. Everybody is mid laughter. So I don't know if the photographer is really funny, just made the best joke, but everyone's laughing. I mean, super, super bright, huge expressions. It looks like you're all wearing this shirt. It's like your blue, I guess, blue shirt. You're
Yeah,
outside. You're outside. The light isn't super harsh. You're in a bit of shade. The guy on the left is really muscular. Like he's like built. And then I don't know which one you are. Everybody's wearing a shirt that says, I think, the Rep Foundation.
yes, the Red Foundation.
And okay, so what's this? What's so funny?
Okay, so first of all, yes, the photograph was really funny, and he kind of I don't remember the joke he made, but he made us all laugh, at that time, and then he just took
For
the shot.
sure.
And
It's great. It's great.
yeah, and the muscular guy on the right side, uh, that's me.
That's not you.
Basically, that's me.
That's you?
Yeah.
You're huge. What? Dude, what do you eat? You're massive.
I used to gym a lot.
You yeah, you could say that again. I mean, you're like your bodybuilder huge. Look at your face. Aren't you nice? Wow.
Thank you.
Okay, okay.
So,
Respect. Respect.
thank you. Okay, so yes, so the Rep Foundation basically it's a non-for-profit development organization based in Ghana. So because I studied there, so I had to kind of get into the active life and genuinely contribute to community development. So this organization specifically focuses on African rural communities and their environment. But
Okay.
the biggest strategy that is put forward is youth engagement. So that's why in this picture you see like we all young people. I think at that time we weren't even 30 years old yet, so we're still in our 20s,
Okay.
and more of our teammates as well were even younger than us, so basically 17, 18 years old. So the big
Okay.
idea of these photograph was to advertise
the joy that young people had to have to, in development. So focusing on development, on elevating communities, and is some form of empowerment that we are sharing with young people. So we are trying to tell them you can do this for your community. So there are three aspects we focused on: healthcare, education, and economic advancement. So we kind of gathered different people from different field of studies or knowledge, and into one group that is capable to advance all those great criteria. But the striking point here is that we are all young and we really want to to
Hmm.
make an effort, to change the world and to help them considering the importance of the environment they live within.
Right. Right. Okay. So within that sphere, okay.
Mhm,
Now the thing about youth is that every year that you do the work, you get farther away from that baseline or whatever. So, for example, I once went to this youth conference for entrepreneurship,
mhm,
and there were about 30 or 40 people. And then one of the exercises was, okay, everybody, let's align everybody from oldest to youngest.
mhm.
Okay, so it, just as a kind of
Yeah.
team building thing, right? We had people from all over the world, and I was devastated and shocked to realize that I was the oldest person in the room. And I was like, what? I was really stunned. And so this photograph was done in 2019, you say, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So how about you talk about what you've realized since then in terms of your mission, your goals, the outreach to youth? How do you interpret that connection to this photo done 3 years ago
Mm.
and now, and how much that's changed you?
That was at that moment I took that picture, that photo. I really had to. I mean, I really had to reevaluate where how far I went, before even I take the picture, and how far I want to go in the future. So how far I want to see myself in the future. So, but then now that I'm looking back at this picture, I see that I've really made a big jump because
Mm-hmm.
right, I was that type of person who wanted to know a lot of things, not just about international affairs and politics, this kind of stuff, but also wanted to engage more into intersectional fields. So knowing a bit more about society as a whole, what makes people happy, right? So
Yeah.
we think about young people today because we think about the population and the future that the Earth population has. So we sometimes kind of tend to be worried about it. And at that time, I took that picture. I was very much concerned about what kind of future we're going into. But then I just realized that we are the ones shaping the future, right? And today I'm glad to see that most of the people I interact with professionally are seeing some not just influential when it comes to decision making process, but also they see some form of values, that I kind of underestimated at first, but in me, in what I provide as an idea to reconnect human beings with environment, especially those who actually forgot about the importance of their environment, preserving the environment and of course bringing out some innovative ideas. So
Okay.
I see more and more
Uh,
contribution into what I do.
okay. So, okay, given your education, given your exposure, your experience, life history, would you say that, like, in order to be able to reach a certain level of sustainable like development within policy, that there has to be a certain economic threshold that has to be crossed? How much do you see the challenges of what's happening either back at home
Mhm.
or like what's the crossover that you see that I mean is it just an economic barrier or education barrier, policy barrier? Like how do you attack that problem?
Well, I think it's all about will, because we if we have to speak about to talk about education, to talk about economy and etc. I think we all have the means, but we are not willing enough to put into actions what we all deem to be essential. So some people, of course, are ignorant, to some extent. So it's not something I want to, I want people to think about pejoratively. But then uh,
Hmm.
we can't necessarily know everything, but there are certain things that are important to know, especially when it comes to, our relationship with environment, right? And especially in a sustainable manner. So if we are willing enough to care about the environment and beyond our own personal interest, then we can understand a bit more how we connect to the environment and how sustainable our development can be if we care about the environment. So, this is the kind of perspective that I am bringing into every single step of my work. And I'm glad to see that
Okay.
most businesses and policymakers have actually saw value, understood that value and kind of now implement it at the same time.
Well, are you talking about in the UK or are you talking, I mean, do you only work out of the UK or do you go to like through your
Well,
Green Bee Insights?
yeah, Green Bee Insights, basically through it, that's a network that allows, conversations between, interested business persons, and but not only in the UK but also all over the world. So my focus is more
Okay.
global, than just national, or just regional. So I have clients basically that interact with me from all over the world, and you have some in Southeast Asia, and then you have most of them who are quite interested in investing in Africa from different Western countries, and even those who are actually investing in the UK themselves. So I think that idea that I'm sharing
Okay.
doesn't just apply for an African context, because when it comes to environment, it's still a development process, even if we are framed today as either developed or developing words. So this is much more important.
Mm. Okay. Do you want to move on to the next photo or do you want to stay on this one?
Yeah, let's
Because
do it.
look, this photo is it's so in the photograph, it's so positive and it's so everybody's laughing and it's really great. Now, how do you see your character influenced? Because the work you're doing is actually upsetting. It can be quite depressing. It can be challenging. So, how do you see yourself like personally shaped?
Personally, I think I'm not I mean, I don't know if I could talk to myself as an idealist or something like that. But the work that I do give me joy, because I see more and more people being interested. At first, I was very skeptical whether people will be interested, into sustainable development, into policy, because whenever I talk about that, people say politics is boring. Politics, it's knows little about
Mm,
science,
right.
knows little about the environment, and is mostly self-centered. Serves kind of like serves itself, but I think it's just an idea that has shaped many different policymakers over the years, and over the past decades, and in such a way that they don't consider certain aspect of things. But of course, I think it's all
Mm,
about being humble, and then rediscovering, what is the value of politics itself, or policymaking itself, into bringing or leading for sustainable development. So this is the intersection I'm trying to build, or let's say to contribute to. And I know many people don't see that link, many people don't understand it yet, but once it is
Uh huh.
understood, then they're able to implement it to dare and try. And when it works, they actually write about it and they're actually happy. So this is how
Sure.
I find my joy, and I saw many people succeeding when applying it, and it makes me feel even happier and more encouraged to continue.
No, I completely get that. I'm just trying to understand your world. So, do you work mostly with the commercial sector? Do you work mostly with governments? Are you kind of a bridge? What does your what does your scope normally look like?
Well, I work with everyone basically, uh, individuals, policymakers, business persons, even those who are scientists, but who still seeks this form of some form of understanding of politics and sustainable development policies, specifically, because I consider myself, as you said earlier, I consider myself as a bridge for all these diversity of people. And because whatever we do, whether
Mm,
is in one
mm,
sector or the other, has an effect on the environment and the policies that we make, the activities that we run. So at some point, it's a circle. It's a circle of cause and effect that we see happening and repeating over and over. So
okay. Okay.
because I understood that I had to be that bridge, and to be that bridge, then I understood that I had to be that person who knows 360 degree about not just my field, but also about any other field I can get in touch with to know a bit more and providing even more bridging solutions.
Mm, okay. Here's okay. Now this is going to be completely random. Okay, and I'm just going to follow whatever tangent or whatever I have. I'm always listening to people's voices and the way they speak and the choice of words and their intonation. And some of your words are kind of accented with a kind of a British way of like a sort of an English accent. Some of them remind me of Quebec, of an English speaker who has French as a basis. So now, excuse me if I'm completely ignorant, but Cameroon, do you speak French as well?
Yeah, of course. And just for, let's say, for a fact, Cameroon is, I think Cameroon and Canada are the only French and English speaking countries, bilingual speaking countries in the world. I suppose it is officially
Yeah.
anyway.
So
And
isn't that funny that I could hear you speak, and I think it sounds very familiar in terms of the French undertone. But anyways, keep going, keep going. Sorry.
but absolutely, you've got it right. Actually, I am from a French speaking background. So my family, basically, what family I was raised into, is has French as first language, first official language anyway. So French is also de facto my
Okay.
uh, first language. So English is just like a secondary language I had to kind of learn and really deep dive into in order to do whatever I'm doing today.
Right, right. Okay, okay. Look, I know that was from left field, but listen, we're getting to know each other. Veux-tu passer à la prochaine photo?
Oui, bien sûr.
Okay. Okay, great. And this, I love it. Let me describe it. Okay, so it's very lush. It's green. It's very pastoral, and there are two deer. There are two deer just kind of just in the grasses that you can just barely see, and it's a plain. Is this a photo taken back home, or is this an image? I don't know that you've gotten through work.
Yeah, actually, you've described it really well. It's a photo that I took on my visit to Shai Hills Resource Reserve, that is basically located in Ghana, Accra. So, yeah, I used to visit a lot of natural spaces in Ghana, so because they have absolutely gorgeous landscapes and yeah. But this place,
Yeah, it looks beautiful.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. It is actually a really beautiful place. So I couldn't help but take that picture, take that photo, because I thought about what is the meaning of nature in its pure aspect. So just imagine for a second an environment that human beings have not been able to touch or to reach. How does that look like? So when I took that picture, I kept staring at the deers that were there, and they also stare at us like, "Who are you guys? Like, what do you want from me? What are you doing over there?" So it is their own space, actually, that is completely, uh,
Yep.
uh, free of human beings. So, well, it's not to say that I believe that human beings have no place in nature. No, on the contrary, it's just to say that nature deserves its own space. At some point, and is part of a single
Mm-hmm.
ecosystem. So when it comes to preservations and all, like, there are some animals that can't live with human beings, very close, for very close look, but then they need just some form of isolation, in their own space, in their own environment, to kind of evolve,
Sure.
or let's say to continue to live on and preserve the nature in their own way.
Okay. Right. How do we tie all these things together? Like how isolated are you? For example, being in the UK, are there wild spaces that you can go into where you can get away from a reminder of a human imprint?
Yeah, I think here in the UK, it's very much the parks, actually, and the different mountains that I've visited so far, anyway, that kind of reminds me of that green space, that natural space, natural environment, that you can see on this picture. I think at some point it shows that wherever we go, there is still nature, and nature was something that was here millennials before even we appear on Earth. I mean, I suppose that's it. So uh,
Mm-hmm.
we've kind of have to consider that we came into an environment and we evolve into an environment that is still the same, that is still green. And now it is disappearing
Mm.
a little more. And for me, whenever I look at this picture, this photo, I always think to myself that there is something we still don't understand about our connections with nature, but we still need to preserve it,
Okay.
even though we don't understand it.
Yeah.
It's not a license to destroy, basically, because we ignore and we say, okay, we don't know,
Right.
or we know enough. No, it's always something we need to discover every day.
Mm. Okay. So here's the thing that you leave one context, one environment, to go study in a slightly different environment, and then you leave that environment to go to a completely new one in the UK. So then, what is your feeling when you go back home and you look back after learning everything that you've learned? How alien do you ever feel, or does that even happen?
Well, I think I no longer feel, I don't no longer feel, the weight of one culture compared to another, because it kinds of intertwine. It's just of course, the different of
Okay.
environment that kind of reminds me that the other environment had something better, because I always focus on what is better. I don't really look much of what is worse, but some point I have to. So what? But mostly, what can we do better? That's the question. That's the biggest question that comes to my mind. What can
Mm-hmm.
we do better in this environment as compared to the other environment? Let me give you an example. Recently, when I traveled back to Ghana, then I looked at the environment, and I was thinking to myself, why can't we apply this? I mean, a certain technique, to preserve the environment where we live in, and in comparison to what I saw in the UK at some point. And I started questioning myself,
Hmm.
if it go deeper. So what is needed? Is it money? Is it like minded people? Is it or is it just better policies that we need, right? So, but at the same time, when I come back to the UK and then I look at the environment or maybe the relationship between a human and animals or human and plants and trees, I think as well that we should plant more trees because maybe in Africa we have,
Yeah.
of course, it's
Yeah.
natural, but then we have more trees that we can plant even here.
Okay, Lionel. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate your time. This has been great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.